Hello and welcome to The List Makers, a spin-off podcast from The Doctor Who Show. I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And this month our topic comes from listener Joe Llewellyn, and the topic is Top 5 Stories Featuring the Military.
I wonder if Joe has an interest in the military in general.
That's interesting. I don't know. He'll have to write in and ask us. But as always, thank you for sending in a topic. You ready for this one, Rob?
I am ready, Dave.
Any snap predictions on this one?
Well, given the nature of Doctor Who and the military, I think we're going to have to snap somewhere. But as to how many, I'll say 2.
Yeah, I reckon maybe 2. I don't know it necessarily will be that snappy, but we'll find out. It's my turn to go first, so I'm going to make my list. As always, we'll make our lists. We won't comment on each other's, and then we'll compare some notes.
Righto.
So my list, Rob, top 5 stories featuring the military. Number 5, purely for some of the actual shots and scenes of military activity, I've gone with The Mind of Evil. The director here, Timothy Coombe, really knew what he was doing with the military. He went way over budget and wasn't invited back to Doctor Who again, which is a real pity. But here you have the military being very military. You have the military doing military things. They're transporting missiles around. They're raiding prisons. They're shooting bad guys. It's really well done. They take a lot of time doing it really, really well. And I just thought at a really basic level, at number 5, if you can't just have really good, well-shot shots of military people doing army stuff, what's going on? So, nice. Mind of Evil, number 5. I'm jumping to the new series for number 4 with an episode that doesn't have the military per se that much, but where attitudes to the military and the use of the military permeates through the whole story, and that is Human Nature.
Oh.
The framing here, of course, is Thomas Sangster's character being a soldier in World War I, so there is a framing device there of the military, but it is talking about, in part, that sort of masculine schoolboy identity of what it is to be a man and to be a soldier and to serve the country. It uses that as a sort of a fake test of manliness, which some of the students obviously pass and some don't, and they're ostracised because of that. And then it goes further in the second part to actually show that that's not what it's about, and being in the military is scary, being in battle is terrifying, actually shooting other people, even just shooting walking scarecrows, is actually very, very hard and scary and soul-shattering to do. So I just thought, yeah, in the way that unusually for the new series, it really sort of tests in a mature way what it is to be military. I thought Human Nature.
Great. Number
3 was probably the first one that I put on my list when I was jotting down off the top of my head, sort of free sky, blue sky, whatever you call it, just what I'm going to put down, and that is Battlefield, because if we're doing amount of military per square inch in a Doctor Who story, I think Battlefield has to be up there. But again, as well as making good use of the military, as well as actually having some Air Force characters, which is a bit unusual in Doctor Who. It's all Army, bit of Navy. Very rare you get the Air Force. But you've got the Air Force in here on a couple of occasions. You've got a proper international setup, a UN-type setup of unit here in the military. You've got Major Zabegniev. I've actually just bought his autobiography to read. So that's really good. But again, as well as having lots of military doing military things, you actually test some of that. You get the moment where Brigadier Bambera is sad at the fact she's had to kill a very young soldier, even though it was necessary. You get the exploration of what nuclear war really means, and that when you elevate military activity to that level, have you just gone beyond any sense of duty, honour, all the rest of it. It really does explore that, and of course you have the Brigadier with one big finale.
Nice.
Number 2, military doing lots of military things with a very positive director who got military things, and that is The Invasion. This is the one that really sets up the military in Doctor Who going forward. Yes, we'd had them in stuff like the War Machines. Yes, we'd had Lieutenant Colonel Lethbridge Stewart turn up in the Web of Fear. Check his rank slides, guys. He's Lieutenant Colonel, not a Colonel, I swear. I'm sure. Unless someone can find me a good photo of his rank insignia, I reckon he's Lieutenant Colonel. Anyway, in The Invasion, it turns up properly, and as well as having the Dougie Camfield directed really good use of the military, that really good use of the army attacking Vaughan's HQ in the end, you get the military doing military intelligence type stuff. You get the Brigadier's agents out there sorting stuff up. You also, again, get a Hercules aircraft, so, more aircraft, more Air Force, which is good to see. But you also get to see the Russian military as well. There's a sense of world military in this. You get to see them firing missiles at cyber ships. You actually get to see the military doing a lot of stuff, and again, directed really well, written really well, feeling like a real military that the Doctor has walked into.
Nice.
Number one, I have been picking stories that have a lot of military, but also stories where the military is explored. And I think nothing could tick both of those boxes better than The Curse of Fenric. That is my number one pick. Here you don't just have the British military, you have the Navy turning up, so it's not just the army, but you also have the Russian military, which gives you a different perspective again. You have a lot of military people doing military things. It's a very, very good story. But again, that exploration of the role of the soldier, that idea of war being politics extended by another means, and what that means for the common soldier, the way that the British and Russian soldiers bond at the end when they realise that they could actually fight the common enemy together, explores, again, issues. And it's not saying military is bad, it's not saying military people are stupid, it's not saying we need to be anti-military, but it's saying that there is a line you can cross where the military is no longer being used for honourable things, and the exploration of Commander Millington wanting to use gas weaponry, particularly against Russia, as a preemptive strike on Moscow, is really saying, there is honourable military duties and there is beyond that, and exploring what that means, much like Battlefield. Interesting, I didn't actually realise till I looked at my list now, 2 stories from season 26. Maybe we'll explore that. That's my list, Rob. Before you comment, let's hear yours.
Well, do you want to know how many snaps there are?
Oh, yeah, go on.
1.
That doesn't shock me, because I know my list was maybe a little bit different. And look, this is one of those lists where you can approach it in really different ways. You can go like military per square inch, or good characterization, or what it themes. Let's see what you did, Rob. Let's see where the overlap is.
All right, Dave. In at number 5, I've got the Demons. And I'm the first to admit this isn't a major military story, but I would argue it's the peak unit family story. And Unit's our military touchstone in the show. So here it is at number 5. And yes, Benton and Yates are getting around in plain clothes, but we do have some proper unit troops getting around in their big van, and we've got the unit chopper, we've got Jenkins, chap with the wings 5 rounds rapid, all of that stuff. And it's a story I just love, so I'm dropping it in at number 5 for a starter here.
Why not?
In at number 4, I've got Time of the Angels and Flesh and Stone. And this is a bit of a Rob left field pick here. I just remember being really tickled with this idea of the church, or what the church has become in the future, where it's not quite Catholic, it's not quite Anglican, it seems to mix a whole bunch of stuff, and maybe some non-religious stuff as well on top of that. And it's become this highly militarized force where you've got Marines come clerics getting around. I thought that was a very cool idea. It got revisited recently in one of Ncuti Gatwa's episodes too, with an Anglican cleric. It's a solid adventure too, with the troops playing a decent role, even in quite chilling ways, like when the Weeping Angel takes over Bob and puppets his body. It's a look at a future military, and I think that's pretty great stuff.
Okay, I have comments, but we'll come to them.
All right, in at number 3, I've got Inferno, back to the Pertwee era, and I don't think we can go past this, as it's a cracking story, but we also see the alternate unit led by the brigade leader, and that's cool in and of itself. Alternate universes always are. But this might tie into one of your points as well, where you're talking about, making commentaries on the military and so on. It's being done to make this point that institutions, organisations in themselves don't make people good. It's their values that make them good. Because UNIT is the same organisation, ostensibly. It's staffed by recognisably similar people with the same structures, just slightly different job titles, brigadier as brigade leader, and so on. But you tweak that political culture, it gets a bit fash, and things have just gone to hell. And I think that's a very clever thing to do. In at number 2, and our snap, I've gone with The Invasion. And this was fine.
We need a term for when we have the same story in the same spot, like a golden snap or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. This was fighting it out with my number 1 pick, because gosh, it's good. We're in prototype Pertwee territory here. As you say, we've got UNIT working as both surveillance, sort of like MI5. You've got Benton and others in plain clothes tooling around in Jaguars. That's really cool. But we also have the regular troops fighting the Cybermen. It's in the 60s. It's cool. It had to sit this high on my list.
No, very fair.
And finally, in at number 1, I've got Remembrance of the Daleks. And I can't go past this. It's a killer story. We've got a Dalek fighting a military detachment in a junkyard. How cool is that? We've got great weapons. And of course, we've got Group Captain Gilmore, Professor Jensen, and Allison, who are the intrusion countermeasures group getting around. So this show has the military offshoots, action. It's cool. It's retro, and it's funny because it was only 25 years on from the time it was copying when they made it, whereas that time is now 62 years ago. I mean, is that insane or is that insane, Dave?
Yeah, that does hurt, yes.
And that's my list.
That's a very, very good list, Rob. And although we only had one snap, in fact, it was a golden snap, I had 2 runners-up, 2 honourable mentions, and they were Inferno and Remembrance of the Daleks.
Wow, okay.
So my runners-up were both on your list, so we got very close to 3 snaps. I want to particularly mention, I think, Remembrance of the Daleks, and just add to what you said there. I agree, it could very easily have been on my list. I was looking for stories that weren't just the Army, they were Air Force, and of course, all the military in this is Air Force. So that did get a big tick from me, and yes, it is very well used, so no, I do appreciate that one. Yeah, concur with what you said about Inferno, and I think that's maybe a useful point to jump off, because a number of the picks we've both had, and including Inferno where I almost had it, have been, as you said, that idea of it's not just the institution that makes the individuals, and the individuals that makes the institution. You tweak a little bit in there, and suddenly you get very different things. And yes, Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart growing up in one world versus another becomes a very different person.
Yeah, even though it's the same guy, same institution. Yeah, all of that. I find that very fascinating to think about. And it's maybe not a point a lot of people think about when they're watching the story. They're just watching it for the action and the adventure. And, oh, isn't it fun to see the Brigadiers wearing an eye patch? But when you just stop and think a bit more about it, there's that lovely message in there that you've got to sort of reach up and grasp, and it's so different to modern Doctor Who, Dave. Someone would turn to camera and explain what's happening in modern Doctor Who, and probably have a very terrible take on the military to boot. Yeah, and you know, you go beyond Lethbridge Stewart to Benton, and Benton is a bit of a, you know, very professional soldier in our world, but a bit of a softie, you know, a lovely guy, kind-hearted. In the Inferno fascist world, he's a bully. He's I don't know if you can quite call him outright sadistic, but he's definitely a bully. Again, that just shows that the way these institutions work and the way they shape individuals is really interesting and can be explored. Now, you mentioned there, Rob, New Who. Yes. Interesting. We both only had one pick from New Who each on our lists, and mine was very, not obscure, but it wasn't quite as military as maybe the others. I considered Time of Angels / Flesh and Stone and dismissed it because I really don't like what they do with the military here. And I totally get the point you're making, that the exploration of a different take on the military is interesting. And that's very reasonable, very fair, and I totally accept it. I guess perhaps because I've been in the military, I was an officer in the Air Force, I do take portrayals of the military a little bit more seriously, in the way that we all know school teachers who watch dramas set in schools and go, well, that's just ridiculous, that would never happen, and that's not how it is in real schools, you know, that sort of thing. Mm-mm. So I get the difference there, but I think it's interesting that I think New Who generally struggles to depict the military. I don't think most of the creatives behind Doctor Who in the 21st century have any real working knowledge or understanding of the military. They're in fact institutionally suspicious of the military, partly because they don't understand it, partly because they probably have no experience of it, partly because they've probably come through a post 9/11 period where the military has been used for regular occurrences that have not always had popular support. Let me be delicate and put it that way. So we don't want to start exploring the politics of the military post 9/11. That's not what we're here for. Sure. But we can acknowledge that they have been controversial uses. Let me put it that way. So maybe in that environment you get lots of, you know, the military are either dumb, or the military are evil, or the military are wicked.
the military don't work. You get those sort of portrayals, but I get it's a different one here. That's a long way of me rambling about this, Rob. I'll let you have a word in now.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I don't think the military is portrayed in any of those ways here. In fact, Ian Glenn, his character, and I can't think of his name offhand, which is annoying me very much, but he is a very good character, very honourable character, and I think this fantasy military that we're looking at is portrayed quite well. I don't think it's negative at all.
No, I think it probably isn't. I think if anything, it's a more negative portrayal of the church than it is of the military. This idea that clergymen are just one bit of dogma away from taking up weapons, I guess, which is a whole different topic, and one I'm not going to defend or explore. Yeah, no, I think this is definitely one of the more sympathetic ones in New Who, which is why I at least considered it and then dismissed it, because I just didn't kind of appreciate it the way that you did. But you raised a really good point. I appreciate that. But we've said before, particularly going back to early Doctor Who, multiple creatives, both in front of and behind the camera, actually served in the military. A lot of them served in World War II. A number of them did national service, or they would have had parents, uncles, aunts that have served in the military, have done national service. So there was a very different sort of idea of it there. And I think institutions generally in the UK were better regarded in the 20th century than the 21st.
Yeah, true. We both snapped on the invasion. You mentioned the Hercules. I'm trying to remember, is the Brigadier's HQ inside the Hercules? Do they drive onto the airfield and drive up?
Yes.
Into the back of it?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
And I've got to say, even the layout of the headquarters in that plane with the ladder going up to the cockpit and all the rest of it is actually very accurate to the layout of a early Hercules. And I've been in the back of many Hercules.
Wow, no, that's very cool.
And the great thing about the Hercules is that you can drop the ramp whilst you're in the air.
Yes. Yeah, well, yeah, you can throw cargo out the back, I guess.
Yeah, or paratroopers.
Or paratroopers,
yes,
yeah.
No, so I have been in a Herc with the ramp open in midair. It is very cool.
I'm mates with a fella who cosplays, or used to cosplay as a Ghostbuster. That's how I came to know him. But he was a Hercules pilot for many, many years. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, while we didn't have a lot of New Who, Rob, we had a lot of McCoy. In fact, I had 2 McCoys, both from season 26. You had a season 25 in Remembrance, which I also had. What's going on there? Because that is not the generation that grew up with the military.
Off the top of my head, I can't explain that, because I also had Fenric floating around in my head as well. I didn't actually put it down on any list, but it was floating around. In Remembrance, for me, it was the retro charm of the thing. I think just seeing the 1960s military done in colour and with great special, or for the time, great special effects in Remembrance, that was kind of the appeal there, but that's not really answering the question you're asking.
No, and I wonder if it is a little bit of a nostalgia thing, because you're right, Remembrance is very much harking back to the 60s. Fenric is the military in World War II, which again is going back to the good war, the war against fascism. And then Battlefield, although it's set in the future, at least at the time it was, includes the Brigadier and unit. So maybe you've also got that sort of nostalgic feeling for the depiction of the military in 60s and 70s Doctor Who. So maybe there is a bit of a nostalgia thing coming through the creatives behind the McCoy era. And maybe just because McCoy's Doctor is so determined never to pick up a weapon, giving him that unit type support or that military type support is useful sometimes.
Yeah, agreed.
And a good contrast.
Yeah.
Because as I said, let's face it, in all of them, Battlefield, Fenric and Remembrance, the Doctor does get to work with the military, but also allow himself and actively contrast himself and his values with the military.
Yeah.
2 very interesting lists there, Rob, taking them slightly different ways, but we are well and truly out of time. Thank you again to Joe for sending in that topic.
Yeah, you got us talking, Joe.
We'll now turn into Curlo's How to Wrestle On. And for next month, we have top 5 deceased Doctor Who people you'd like to have on a convention panel.
It's finally come out.
It's finally come out. What's it been, 7-8 months since we had living people?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So no, the deceased ones has finally come out. That lets us use our imagination very well, but that's for next month. Until then, I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
And we'll make some more lists soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.